to Scott Fox After 9. It has been a very, very interesting 24 hours in my life, and I'm going to explain to you why coming up in a few minutes. Before I get to that, though, let's talk about why everybody's in such a good mood today.
The 1-2 pitch. Got him! Jeff Hoffman strikes out Cody Bellinger, and the Blue Jays have done it. They have knocked off the New York Yankees. They have won their first playoff series since 2016, and they are going to the American League Championship Series.
Way to go, Blue Jays. Off to the ALCS. That is going to get started on Sunday. Go Jays, go. As I record right now, we don't know who they're going to play. It'll either be the Seattle Mariners or the Detroit Tigers. I don't care which one it is, but this is great news. Way to go, Blue Jays. To pull it off and do that win last night at Yankee Stadium was amazing. By the way, last night, the Leafs had their season opener. And most of the time when the Leafs are playing their season opener, all eyes are on the Leafs. Last night, it was the opposite. Not only were people thinking about baseball, people that were at the hockey game were watching the baseball game in Scotiabank Arena on the Jumbotron. Listen to this. That was in Scotiabank Arena. Hockey game is over, and people were watching baseball at our hockey arena, and I love that. Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to After 9. I said I've had an interesting 24 hours, and I'll tell you why. It is namely to do with some of the things that I said on yesterday's podcast. Yesterday, I did not jump all over Prime Minister Carney. I did not criticize him for coming back from Washington without a deal. Yesterday, I decided I will continue on the path that I've been on since back in January, being optimistic that the future looks bright and a good deal with America is coming. It is amazing how many people reached out to me, like a tangible number, that were disappointed in me for not crapping all over Mark Carney, asking, Scott, what don't you see? He didn't get a deal. What's wrong with you? Why are you not criticizing Prime Minister Carney for not getting a deal? Hey, listen, we're allowed to disagree on this, and let me explain my perspective before I get into today's audio. Right now, I want a deal done. I want us to be more aligned with America, less aligned with Europe. And I also want Canada to start thriving. I want us to get our oil and our liquid natural gas and our softwood lumber and our steel and aluminum. I want us to get all of our exports. Critical minerals, another great example. I want them all being sold around the world, and I want the Canadian people to prosper from that. And right now, Mark Carney is negotiating a deal that could probably get that done and tie us closer to the Americans. And I think that is great. But I, like you, do not have an infinite amount of patience. And Mark Carney needs to understand that. When he met with President Trump in Washington the other day, I got the impression that they're close. I feel like something is coming. And you know what? I played a lot of audio to support that theory, that something is coming. What that looks like is going to determine my mood going forward. I'm not going to crap on Mark Carney for not coming back from Washington with a deal. I will get upset with the Prime Minister if he doesn't get a good deal. I will be upset with the Prime Minister if he sells out our auto industry. I will be upset with Mark Carney if he doesn't stand up for Canada. That's when I'll get upset with the Prime Minister. Right now, there's nothing to be upset about. He had a meeting. They didn't announce a deal right after the meeting, and that's okay. I want them to get it right. I want it to be the best deal for Canada. But I also remember Mark Carney swore he was the guy that would negotiate a good deal. Okay, well, those were his promises, not mine. Let's see what he does. I'll judge Mark Carney by the deal that he comes back to Canada with. The fact that it didn't come 2 days ago is not really a big deal to me. Whether it got done 2 days ago, or it gets done on Tuesday, or it gets done on Halloween, it doesn't really matter to me. But I will point out, the longer this goes on, the worse it gets. I'll judge Mark Carney by the deal he does, not by the fact that he didn't get a deal done with Trump the other day. Although, while I am being a little bit moderate in my approach here, while I am giving the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt still. Maybe I'm naive. Hey, people called me out yesterday, and that's fine. That's fair game. I've always said you can call me out. You can challenge me and my opinions just about any time. People called me out yesterday for not calling out Mark Carney. While I opted not to, you know who certainly did was the leader of the opposition. And by the way, it's his job to do that. So let's go to question period. Yesterday in the House of Commons, this is an interesting exchange between Pierre Poilievre and Prime Minister Carney. Give it a listen.
Well, we now know why the U.S. president wanted this prime minister in power so badly. A weak leader whose high taxes and anti-development laws are sending billions of dollars and thousands of jobs out of this country. 86,000 jobs lost. And yesterday, the Prime Minister promised the President that he would increase Canadian investment in the U.S. by $1 trillion if he gets the agreement that he expects to get. Mr. Speaker, in exchange for $1 trillion of job losses in Canada, will he at least get an end to the U.S. auto tariffs that are killing jobs for our workers in Ontario?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have the best deal in the world with the Americans. First point. Second point, the President of the United States and myself had a meeting of minds yesterday with respect to the future of the steel sector, the aluminum sector, the energy sector in cooperation, which is why our teams are negotiating the terms of those deals. And we are working, as the President himself said in the Oval Office, on the modalities of an auto agreement.
Okay, that's the first volley back and forth that happened in English. Yesterday, a story was reported by one of the mainstream media news outlets that was quoting Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, saying they're not letting Canada have the auto industry. Maybe Canada can make parts for the auto industry, but America is taking auto manufacturing assembly back to America. And I noted there that the Prime Minister said he was going to work out a deal for steel, aluminum, security, and what else? Energy. He kind of mentioned, though, a formula about the auto sector. That doesn't sound like the Prime Minister is standing up for the auto sector and to try and keep Ford in Ontario, to try and keep Stellantis in Ontario, to keep General Motors in Ontario. Doesn't sound like that's where that's going. And back to my point from a little bit earlier on, again, I will judge the Prime Minister by the deal he brings back to Canada, not by the fact that he didn't bring a deal on Tuesday. Here's the rest of that exchange yesterday in the House of Commons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he just confirmed he's selling out our auto workers. And let me tell him what it means when investment leaves this country, because he was forced a record amount out in his 7 months in power. The 700 workers at the GM plant who lost their jobs in Oshawa, they can tell him about investment that is left. They're sitting around the dinner table wondering how they're going to pay their bills while GM announces $4 billion of new investment south of the border. So while the Prime Minister promises yet another $1 trillion gift to President Trump, why doesn't he look them at those workers in the eye and explain to them why he betrayed them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing for the auto sector is an unprecedented investment in the Canadian auto sector. We look the Canadian auto workers in the eye. We have $5 billion in the Strategic Response Fund. We have $10 billion for liquidity management. We have worker retraining. We are striking deals with countries around the world. We have the best deal already with the Americans, and it will be even better.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we'll go soft on him today because I know he's still recovering from surgery to have his elbows removed. Remember that promise, Mr. Speaker? Dancing around with his elbows in the air. We haven't seen those elbows since the election, after which $54 billion of investment gone to the United States. 86,000 jobs gone. American tariffs on Canada doubled. And as to the best deal in the world, why is it then, if we have the best deal, that Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and 86,000 people are without a job?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay. All right. Mr. Speaker, there are three things that are true. First is, I realized long before the Leader of the Opposition, long before the last election, you remember the last election? Long before the last election, that our relationship with the United States would never again be what it was. Secondly, thing that is true is we have the best deal with the Americans. And the third thing that's true is we will get an even better deal because
I don't quite know where the Prime Minister is going with that. I mean, the facts that Pierre Poilievre laid out are true. 86,000 jobs gone. It's amazing how much investment has fled Canada. The other day, President Trump was bragging to Prime Minister Carney about the trillions or whatever that he has brought into America in 8 months. We lost like 60 billion. Mr. Poilievre is not wrong. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, but the story isn't written yet. The Prime Minister is saying, even though he said our relationship with America would never be the same, now he's saying that we have the best deal with America and he's going to make it better. I'm kind of wondering which lane he wants to be in. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if he knows what lane he wants to be in. Does he want to make us more aligned with America, to have a great agreement that works for everybody and promotes middle-class prosperity in Canada and the U.S.? I'm sure that that's his goal. I'm sure. I think. I don't know. What do you think? Is that his goal? Is he going to let America take all of the auto manufacturing back to America? Are we just going to be like the parts feeder country? Or will we even have that? What is the deal going to look like? You know, when Pierre Poilievre says, Mark Carney, you sold out the auto industry. Maybe the Prime Minister did. We don't have proof of that yet, and that's why we need to wait for whatever deal the Prime Minister is negotiating with President Trump. We need to see the deal. And when we see the deal, then we'll know for sure if we got sold a lemon during the last election. We'll know for sure if he really is some master negotiator. And we'll know for sure if he's really interested in solidifying our relationship with the Americans, or if he's going to take us in the path of joining Europe again, which is what he initially set out to do. Let's hear just a little bit more of the House of Commons. I find this exchange fascinating. I like it when our leaders go toe-to-toe, and here we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians do remember the last election where that Prime Minister promised to put elbows up. It was not a promise, it was the promise that he ran on. Now those elbows have come down. The American tariffs have doubled. We have by far the weakest economy in the G7. 86,000 people have lost their jobs. And the Prime Minister went pathetically to the White House to offer a $1 trillion gift, bowing before the President in weakness. $1 trillion, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of the last election, where in his platform did he promise to give $1 trillion of our investment dollars to the Americans?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the Leader of the Opposition that there is a thing called the private sector. The private sector makes decisions about investment. The private sector, with the best deal in the world, will invest in this country and we will build Canada strong.
I mean, it wasn't that funny. I didn't think it was that good. All of the Liberal ministers behind Mark Carney, the same ones that were behind Justin Trudeau, by the way, they are all laughing at that comment like it was some sort of a big zinger. Oh my God, look at that. He threw the private sector at him. I mean, it's still a fair question. You didn't promise when you were doing the whole elbows up dance that you were going to send $1 trillion of investment to America. Nowhere was that promised. You said elbows up. You said we're going to make ourselves our own best customer. You said we're going to increase supply chains and get Canada's product out to market. You said all of those things, including that our relationship with America will fundamentally change and it'll never be the same. Where does we're going to buy into the Golden Dome missile defense system? We're going to not just meet our NATO spending targets, we're going to exceed them, and we're going to give you $1 trillion in investment. Where did all of that get lost in the platform? Because I don't remember hearing about that either. And again, Pierre Poilievre is right. Where was all that? Again, listen, at some point soon, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is going to come into Canada and he's going to say, I have a deal with America. And then we're all going to get to look at that deal. Then we're going to find out where the rubber meets the road. Then we're going to find out if Mark Carney is this master negotiator that he told us he was. Then we're going to find out if Elbows Up was real or if it was just a scam to get him elected. Then we're going to find out if he's really that good at running a country. Because, of course, we've got major problems here, huge problems. And if the Prime Minister, knowing how in debt we are, is going to be sending any money to America, we need to know that. Would we send money to America if America is basically annexing GM, Stellantis, and Ford back to America? Would we do that? Are we going to have a happy, cohesive relationship if they take our auto sector? And if they do take our auto sector, what's the counter proposal? Because right now that sounds catastrophic. No, you can't take the auto manufacturers. They employ thousands of people almost exclusively in Ontario. You can't take it. But is there going to be some sort of a trade-off? You know what? We're going to take the auto sector back here in America, but Canada, we're going to give you X, Y, and Z. And that will more than make up for the jobs that you're going to lose in the auto sector. Is that how it's going to work? We need to judge the Prime Minister by the deal that he brings back. I'm saying it again. Judging by the fact that he came back with no deal so far, and he's missed a few deadlines now and getting a little impatient here, but I'm not judging him on that. I'm still willing to hear him out. But we will judge based on the deal that he gets done. I'm going to move on from question period there because I do want to move on to other things, but kind of in the same vein. Yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford back out in front of the cameras and the microphones, and he talked about the Prime Minister and what's going to happen here because Premier Ford is the premier who presides over the auto industry in Canada for the most part. I mean, by and large, that's an Ontario industry, and it does employ thousands of people, some of them that listen to this podcast every single day. I've got Toyota listeners in Kitchener and Ingersoll. I've got Honda listeners in the Barrie and Alliston area. I've got Stellantis workers in Brampton. I've got Ford workers in Oakville and Burlington. They're all over the place. They message me all the time to let me know what's going on in their industry. And I love that. So far, I'm not getting the vibe from them that they're particularly worried yet. When the auto workers start reaching out to me saying things like, I think I'm going to lose my job. I think this factory is going to close and it's going to move to Detroit. Then I'll be a little bit more concerned about the auto sector. But until I hear it from people in the auto sector, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with the Prime Minister and the President yet. Doug Ford apparently doesn't know either. Listen to this.
To be fair, I haven't talked to the Prime Minister as of yet. I think I'm sure they'll set up a meeting with myself and other premiers. But let's continue moving forward in a positive fashion. And there's nothing more I'd want to do is get a fair trade deal. I don't want to get an unfair trade deal.
Yes, Premier Ford is absolutely right. We need a fair trade deal, not an unfair one. But back up. What do you mean he still hasn't heard from the Prime Minister? What was the Prime Minister doing after dinner with J.D. Vance? He spent another night in Washington. He couldn't shoot a text to Doug and let him know what's going on. The whole flight home back to Ottawa, couldn't pick up the phone and phone Doug and say, yeah, this is what I talked about with the president. Here's what he's thinking. This is the way this is going. He couldn't stop in Toronto and go and meet with the premier. I mean, Doug lives 5 minutes from the airport. Nothing? Doug Ford still hasn't had a conversation with Premier Carney or Prime Minister Carney about what happened in Washington. That's fascinating to me. I thought they were buddies. I thought they were boys. They were on a texting basis. The Prime Minister went to Doug's cottage in Muskoka and spent the night. And yet he didn't phone Ford and tell him how it went at the White House? That's wild to me. I mean, I thought that they were in lockstep on this. I thought that they were in regular communication. Turns out the prime minister seems to be running this show on his own.
At any given day, President Trump can wake up and say we're tariffing this or tariffing that, like he did the other day. Woke up, all of a sudden the cabinet manufacturers are getting tariffed. The furniture manufacturers are getting tariffed. 10% on our lumber is getting tariffed. So,
were you disappointed that there was no resolution or any kind of relief even for the auto sector or even for the steel sector?
He's going to target our auto sector. I'll fight like I've never fought before to protect our auto sector, to protect our steel sector, and any other sector that he wants to target. We have to make sure we leverage our strengths. But we can't sit back and let President Trump continuously increase tariffs and the Prime Minister's decreasing tariffs. That doesn't cut it.
Premier, any thoughts on your labor minister going to Paris this past weekend for the wedding of a lobbyist?
That's an interesting question, too, about the lobbyists that have been involved with the Ford government. Doug Ford says he is going to fight like he's never fought before for the auto sector. Okay, I mean, I guess, fine. It's just he doesn't really have any say in this. This is the prime minister that's going to work out the deal. Hey, what happens if Doug Ford and Mark Carney, who are boys, I mean, Doug backed Mark Carney during the election. He did not back Pierre Poilievre. He supported Carney. He has, since Carney's election, still been very complimentary of the job that Mark Carney is doing. Okay, that's up to Doug. But what happens if Mark Carney comes back to Canada and says, hey, this is the deal that I got done with the Americans. We're going to join their Golden Dome. We're going to give them $1 trillion in investment. And by the way, we lost the auto sector, but they're going to buy more softwood lumber and steel and aluminum off of us. What is Doug Ford going to do? And how abruptly will he turn on Mark Carney? Or will he turn on Mark Carney? It remains to be seen, but Doug's in a very interesting position here. You know what? Just for kicks, let me hear that question about the lobbyists. Let's hear what's going on here.
Going to Paris this past weekend for the wedding of a lobbyist who recently got skills development funding for a couple of clients.
To be very frank, it's first I heard that he was over in Paris, but I'll find out if he paid for it, whoever paid for it, if it was government business or not.
Premier, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, was up just before you. One of the things he said was America first, Canada second, and that it is increasingly the position of the Trump administration that they want to assemble vehicles in the United States and not in Canada. Did you hear that? What did you think?
I heard that, and it's very clear. We want to manufacture automobiles here. We buy as many as we sell down there. As I've always said, the auto pack's been around since the 1960s. You can't unscramble an egg, you have to make the omelet larger.
Have you heard that from Secretary Lutnick before when you guys have had conversations or meetings?
Not as clear as what he said today. So right away, you got to put your guard up and be prepared. I know the auto sectors don't want it. They do not want it. There was a report the other day, they're going to be out $107 billion because of tariff costs.
Does this now represent, in your view, an existential threat to Ontario's auto sector?
I would say it's a massive threat when you have the Secretary of Commerce coming out and saying that, and the President, you'd only say it if the President gave him the green light. So we have to be prepared, and the auto sector needs to be prepared. Not only our good uniform members, but also the Prime Minister. My first question, what are you going to do to protect the auto sector here in Ontario? It's absolutely critical because with every auto sector falls the part manufacturers and the steel and so on and so forth.
Are you going to try to talk to them? I mean, you're the Secretary of you're in the same building today. Are you going to try to
No, he's not here. He was virtual.
What would you say if you got a chance now to meet with him?
Well,
That's our very well-informed media there asking the Premier if he's going to meet with Howard Lutnick, and Doug had to point out it was virtual. He's not here. Jesus. Anyway, hey, listen. We got some interesting times ahead, don't we? I think we can all agree there's some interesting times ahead. The U.S. is saying they want to do all of the auto manufacturing and assembling in America. That is very, very bad for Ontario and for Canada. Doug just said it's a serious threat. But Doug also said he's heard more from the Commerce Secretary in America than he's heard from the Prime Minister in Canada. And Doug's supposed to be the one who's got to clean up the mess if the auto sector leaves. It's bananas. It is crazy that we are at this point. Let's hear just a little bit more of Premier Ford. And then I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a while, namely because there hasn't been anyone to do it. We're going to hear from the leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada. Stick around.
So that's what we're doing.
Premier, last question. Sorry, just in terms of leverage, you're talking a lot about leverage. What more other than keeping the U.S. booze off the LCBO shelves? I mean, you were prepared to pull that trigger on the energy surcharge, and that lasted about 24 hours. Might it be time to do that again, or are you not prepared? You're talking about fighting and not letting the autos.
But the energy. Howard Lucknock reached out to me and said, "Can we talk?" I flew down there. You take off the steel, and sorry, I apologize. You take off the steel and tariffs, and we'll take off the energy surcharge. Well, sure enough, they didn't, go by the rules. So what we can do, we're going to need energy to compete around the world. We can take the cheap energy we're shipping off peak hours and start giving them to large manufacturing companies to make themselves more competitive, because one of the highest costs out there are energy costs, and we're giving cheap oil down there, and we're giving cheap electricity down to the U.S. So we have to make sure that we're competitive, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect the people of Ontario, protect their jobs, and protect businesses. But thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. That's
Appreciate
it. Thank you.
I know this might not be the place for anything on Marineland.
Oh, yes.
Because we heard that, because Marineland says that they're...
Yeah, good question. We should be talking about Marineland more than we do, and I don't know why it's not coming up with our federal leaders, but good job to ask Doug Ford about Marineland. Let's hear that one, too.
Working with the Ontario government now, is there any move?
Well, I just, like I said, the feds put the permit in, then they took it out. If the feds want to come up and step up, and I'll help them out. This is a challenge. You have 30 massive whales floating around, and pool that's an acre that's full of algae. I'd like to go see it. I'm sure they probably wouldn't want me through the doors, but our inspectors see it, and it's unfortunate.
But the whales are your problem now, aren't they? This is a provincial issue, not a federal one.
It's not our problem. It's a privately held company, and the federal government put the permit in to bring the whales in. But the premier, then they put a halt on the permit to ship them out. So
is the province going to seize the whales? Though, is the province going to seize the whales?
I don't know. If you got a big enough, swimming pool, I'll stick the whales there. But you can't just these are whales.
Yeah.
Right. So
no, but I mean, you can seize them.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Well, no, I wouldn't have to put the blame on us.
Not the blame, but now
it's a responsibility. I think the feds need to step in and help us out.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Listen to the media going after Doug Ford there. I mean, they are just clamoring for a gotcha moment. It's gross. Listen, Doug is quite right. The federal government has some responsibility here because of what the situation they created. It was the federal government that allowed Marineland to have those whales there in the first place. And at some point, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, Justin Trudeau changed the rules so that in Canada, we do not exploit these animals for circuses and shows and stuff like that. And we don't send them anywhere where they might get exploited. And we all know how it went down. Maybe, just maybe, the federal fisheries minister who denied Marineland's permit to ship those whales off to China, which would solve the problem here. Maybe she should revisit her decision, and maybe that law should be applicable going forward and not applicable in a grandfathered kind of way, not applicable to the whales that are already here. We have to do something with the whales that are already here. We already agree we're not going to export whales to be exploited or any marine life or any animals. We're just not going to do that anymore in Canada. But the ones that are here now, the animals that are here, like the whales at Marineland, we have a responsibility to take care of them and make sure that they get top treatment. And I know nobody wants to see these animals forced to perform to get food. But I mean, that's what they were bred to do. They don't know any different. Part of the reason that we can't release them back into the wild is because they don't know how to do what whales in the wild do. They don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to swim in tides. And frankly, they'd talk themselves into insanity because they're used to swimming around in a concrete tank where they get echo on every sound they make and that gets made. When they go out into the ocean, that vast darkness and quiet, they could actually go insane. They could become violent with each other because of that, because they can't hear each other. We need to solve this problem. I'm still on team, send these whales to China, and then we're done. We don't import these whales anymore. We don't allow shows like Marineland was doing anymore. We're completely out of that business. But for now, we have an obligation to those belugas to make sure that we either take care of them or send them somewhere where they're going to be well taken care of. And I have to think that if they're going over to that facility in China, they're going to be very, very well taken care of. Going to move on here because there is still more stuff I got to get into this episode. Many of you will recall when the New Democrats, before the election, were preventing Canadians from having a vote. They buddied up with the Liberals and kept Justin Trudeau in power way too long. The person who did that was Jagmeet Singh. Well, the Canadian voters never got a chance to vote Justin Trudeau out because he took the cowardly route and he quit. So the voters took out their frustration on Jagmeet Singh, and the NDP basically got reduced to nothing in the House of Commons. They're in the process of trying to select a new leader, although I don't know why. They're really just a branch of the Liberal Party, if we're being honest, right? The NDP is just a branch of the Liberals, the far left branch. Actually, I don't even know if they'd be far left because there's some pretty far left people in the Liberal caucus. But anyway, the NDP is looking for a new leader. Their current interim leader is Don Davies. Don came out in front of the House of Commons yesterday, and he did a news conference to update everybody on what the NDP wants to see in the upcoming federal budget.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As you know, I had the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Carney last week and discuss the circumstances facing our country, especially in advance of an important budget that we all know is going to be announced on November 4th. It was an opportunity for me to lay out our perspective as New Democrats on where we think our economy is and what we think is needed at this point in time. First and foremost, I expressed to the Prime Minister that as a strong New Democrat opposition, we are going to be supporting policies that we agree with, and we will be opposing policies that we don't, and therefore we will wait until that budget comes out and we'll evaluate the budget based on what is contained in it. At the same time, we communicated very clearly that we would not be able to support a budget that takes an austerity approach. In our opinion, at this moment in time when we are facing serious economic headwinds and challenges from south of the border, that an economically contractionist approach to our economy is not what's called for, but rather we need to be investing. We need to be investing in Canadian communities, Canadian businesses, Canadian workers, and Canadian infrastructure. I also took the opportunity to highlight a number of areas that we would like to see included in the budget, which is substantial investment in jobs, housing, and healthcare. And by jobs, we mean investing in those kind of jobs that are family sustaining, preferably unionized in every corner of the country. When it comes to housing, we want a serious investment from the federal government in affordable, non-market housing, because we know that's what anchors people in their communities and makes their ability to participate in our economy possible. And finally, in terms of healthcare, we don't believe that you can have a strong economy unless you have a healthy workforce and a healthy population. And, you know, even though it's not been talked about recently, we still have serious crises in our healthcare system. Millions of Canadians cannot access a family doctor. We have significant burnout.
I don't even think he understands the difference between who does what in different levels of government. Don Davies there from the New Democratic Party. He is the interim leader, replacing Jagmeet Singh and in place until they elect a new leader. Basically what he's doing, and I think he's setting us all up for something we should accept here soon, or that we're going to learn soon. The NDP is totally going to support this budget. They're totally going to support it. We got stuck with Justin Trudeau way too long because he made a deal with Jagmeet Singh. And it seems to me that Mr. Davies here has probably cut a deal with Prime Minister Carney to keep the Liberals in power again. The NDP support is all the Liberals need to pass whatever bills they want. This budget, you know, it's funny. Don there, first thing, we won't support an austerity budget. Okay, well, you don't have to because the Prime Minister has already said they're going to change the way they present the budget so that only part of the budget shows austerity, but the rest of it shows investment. And they're going to count infrastructure and many things, non-traditional things, as investments. He says we want more money spent on housing. Well, we know the prime minister is going to go all in on building these mobile homes. We know that. He's already said he's going to. The NDP is setting everybody up for the fact that they're going to vote to support that budget. Now, they don't talk about any of the other things that might be in the budget. I mean, there's going to be a lot of job losses in the federal civil service. At least 15% of federal workers are going to lose their job. Nothing there. We also know that we're going to have a deficit in and around $100 billion. Is that okay with the NDP? As long as we create more unionized jobs in every corner of the country? You know what the NDP should be doing? They should be looking around at the people they were supposed to represent. When the NDP was founded, they were supposed to be a compassionate party for the working folk. They were supposed to be the party that was going to fight for the middle class. And they've completely lost their way and turned into some woke disaster now. And they don't seem to stand for anything except propping up the liberals. That's really their only job. You know, if we had a two-party system where you can vote for the liberals or you can vote for the conservatives, that would be tough for a lot of people who don't want to vote for Mark Carney, but they're also not conservative, or the media's brainwashed them against voting conservative. Maybe. The NDP is a nice little alternative. They pick up all kinds of votes just because of that very phenomenon. That's all they want to be. They have no ambition to govern. They're really just a bunch of lobbyists, and they don't stand for anything. They have no priorities. If the NDP really wanted to try and attract support, if they really wanted to gain some traction and try and someday form government, it's very simple what you do. You go back to your roots and you start supporting the middle class, the working folk. Does he realize how bad it is out there for families? Does he have any idea how many families aren't quite sure how they're going to put food on the table this coming Thanksgiving weekend? Or how many people aren't sure how they're going to be able to buy a Christmas gift for their loved ones or their kids? Does he have any idea how many people are check to check? He should be opposing every single liberal policy that put us in this mess, that decimated the middle class. He should be opposed to all of those. It shouldn't even be a consideration to support the liberal budget, because we know what it's going to mean. More money printing, more inflation, more of the same of what we've experienced for the last 10 years. But no, not Don here. This rocket scientist, we're going to have to wait and see what's in the budget. You already know the budget is going to have enough in it so that you can say, look at this, we got more money for healthcare. I mean, that was going to happen anyway. Look, we got more money for homes and affordable homes. Yeah, we're building trailer parks across the country. We already know that, and we know that Brookfield, Mark Carney's company, is intimately involved in that process. If the NDP were serious, if they were serious people, they would not even consider voting for this budget. In fact, he should have laughed when Mark Carney asked him if he would support his budget. He should have laughed at him and said, not a chance. If you support the middle class, if you support families, you know that job one is making life more affordable. That's job one. They're not interested in doing that. Not at all. You just heard them. What a disaster. You know what? I don't even know why. Maybe I'm just in a really good mood. I want to hear more of this nonsense. Here is him doing a little bit of Q&A with the media.
The economics of that, because part of the idea of providing economic and logically opposed questions.
What's your reaction to the fact that Prime Minister Carney brought up the Keystone XL pipeline with Donald Trump in his meeting yesterday?
Well, I think that's diametrically opposed to what Mr. Carney said during the election, when he said that the days of closer economic and military integration with the United States are over. So first, that's deeper economic integration. Secondly, I fail to understand the economics of that, because part of the idea of providing east-west infrastructure is to reduce our reliance on oil and gas exports to the United States, because we receive a discounted price. So, and that's not to mention the environmental impact considerations of that. So I fail to understand Mr. Carney's reasoning in that regard, and I will say it's not what he said during the election.
Well, he's right. I mean, Pierre Poilievre and now Don Davies here, both pointing out everything Carney has done this week is nothing like what he promised during the campaign. The bait and switch has happened, everyone. But I mean, if Keystone XL, restarting a partnership between Canada and the USA on Keystone XL, that's a pipeline that goes down to America. If that's a consideration, and we know the New Democrats don't like that, why is he even entertaining the idea of supporting the Liberals? We're going to have a confidence vote after the budget comes out. The vote on the budget is a confidence vote. If the Liberals fail the confidence vote, we have an election. Unless the NDP props up the Liberals. This guy here he's a power broker. He can make stuff happen. If Canadians want an election, the NDP are the ones, again, who can deliver that. And we could be voting before Christmas if the Liberals can't get their budget passed. This guy is actually considering voting for it. You just heard him trash Mark Carney. They're going to vote for it. You watch.
Not exactly what you mean by an austerity approach. What would have to happen for the NDP to oppose this budget?
Well, that's the word Mr. Carney used.
What does it mean to you, though?
Well, what it means to us traditionally is that the government will be cutting spending and cutting investments. And we think that's the exact opposite approach that's needed at this time. Look, we have a historic opportunity right now as a country to build more things in Canada, to develop our Canadian economy, to become more self-sufficient, to diversify our trade relations. And I think that that requires investment and belief in ourselves. And so that's why it's an investment budget that we are calling for, not an austerity budget, and we'll be looking for that in the budget accordingly.
So do you fight an election if need be?
Pardon me?
Are you prepared to fight an election over the budget if need be?
Well, that's entirely up to Mr. Carney. I don't think Canadians want an election right now. But really, this is a minority parliament, and there's 3 opposition parties in the House of Commons, and it's up to Mr. Carney as Prime Minister in a minority government to construct a budget that can win the support of at least one of those parties.
Are you worried?
He's totally going to support the budget. I mean, spoiler alert, he's going to support the budget. Absolutely, hands down, lock it. They will pass this confidence vote with the support of the New Democrats. I have no doubt in my mind. Even though it seems to be contrary to everything that party was founded on and contrary to everything that Jack Layton fought so hard for in this country, those guys are going to vote for that budget, and they are going to keep the Liberals in power until 2026 at least. That's the NDP setting us up for it. What does austerity mean to you? Well, we don't want cuts. Okay, well, you know the budget's going to be full of cuts. But we also know that Carney is splitting the budget 2 different ways so that in some parts of it, there'll be cuts, but in other parts of it, there'll be investments. And that's all the NDP wants to hear. Oh, investments? Okay, great. We're in. You even heard the NDP guy there, Don Davies, using liberal language. You can tell he's already been indoctrinated. We have a unique opportunity at this moment in time to invest in Canada. They were trying to position it that way, like because we've got this irreparable relationship with America, now's the time to spend more, to invest more, and make ourselves our own best customer and the greatest economy in the G20. We're going to spend and do it. Well, no, everything with America is fine. If you don't believe me, listen to yesterday's podcast. I played it for you and I laid it out in great detail why I think everything is just fine right now. This is not the time for generational investment because generational investment is generational debt. This is the time to cut spending. This is the time to secure jobs and make sure that our middle class is prosperous. The only way to do that is to bring down the cost of living and to create an environment in Canada where businesses want to invest. Hey, don't want to lose the auto industry to America? How about making it more attractive to set up their business in Canada? These car makers, they want to make money. They want to make a profit. They want to cut their expenses. If it was cheaper to operate in Canada than it was in America, well, then they've got a tough choice to make. But it's not. Much higher taxes, a lot of problems with our labor force, and namely that they're very expensive, a lot of rules, a lot of regulations. Nobody's looking at that. If we had a competitive landscape, if it was an actual tough decision for businesses to make, I don't really want to pay those American tariffs, but it is a lot cheaper to run my business out of Canada. At one point, that's why so many businesses came to Canada, is because it was cheaper and it made more sense to operate here. The landscape has changed again. Trump has made it cheaper, more lucrative, and more opportunistic to to operate in America. And the tariffs are just underscoring that. It's just giving companies exactly what they need to get out and get back to America. That's what he's doing. The NDP is not going to do us any favors here whatsoever. Friends, that's going to do it for me. Have yourselves a great day. Tomorrow is the listener DM episode. Whatever's on your mind. You want to call me out for being too liberal? Okay, come on, hit me. You want to call me out for being too conservative? Hit me. Go on. You want to make a comment, ask a question, whatever you want. I'd love to hear from you. I love the interaction. I love the political discourse, the civil political discourse. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what's on your mind. Send it to me at Scott Fox on air. And as of right now, I've still got room for a number more DMs on tomorrow's episode. Anna Almeida is going to join me for that one. I will catch you right back here then. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode of After 9.